Hello, I am Liana Lupas. I'm the librarian, the curator of the scripture collection for the American Bible Society. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite books. I'm going to show them and say a few words about them and hope that you will like them as much as I do. Thank you. Here are just two leaves from a Bible that has immeasurable historical significance, the Gutenberg Bible. The Gutenberg Bible was the first book printed from movable type, and it literally changed the history of Europe and of mankind. These two leaves represent one complete book of the Bible. It's the book of Malachi. Gutenberg had trained as a goldsmith, and that means that he was able to work with metal and produce small objects. And probably this is what gave him the idea that he could produce a sort of mechanical manuscript. What he really invented at the time was the mold into which he could pour metal and produce a piece of type. We know there is evidence that Gutenberg was already working at this Latin Bible in about 1453, and we know that the Bible was already completed in 1456. So the date of the Gutenberg Bible is probably 1455, if not 1454. Gutenberg worked for 3 or 3.5 years and produced probably around 180 copies. We cannot approximate exactly how much a copyist would have produced during the same amount of time, but I think that it may be correct to assume that a copyist would produce one Latin Bible in 1 year, which would mean that for his first try of the new technology, Gutenberg was about 60 times more efficient than the human hand. The Latin Bible printed by Gutenberg has 42 lines in any complete column, and it's known as the B42. Because there are many other Bibles that were printed a little later than the Gutenberg Bible. If we look at these leaves, what is black is the biblical text. But we can see that there is a red line here and the colored initial next to it. The red line is the title of the book. The color initial is the first letter of that particular book. These are not printed. What we can see is that Gutenberg left room for these to be added to the printed text. Why would he do that? Because he wanted the printed book to look like a manuscript. The manuscripts were his models. The manuscripts were also his competition. If he wanted his printed book to be accepted as a book, it had to look like the other manuscripts of the same text. And Gutenberg spared no effort to achieve this goal. The text is in Latin. It's the Latin Vulgate. Latin has an alphabet of 21 letters. If you want to print a text in Latin, basically you need 21 lowercase letters, 21 uppercase letters, and a few punctuation signs. You can get away with about 50 different characters. There was a German scholar who counted exactly how many different characters Gutenberg used. For each one of them, Gutenberg needed to produce a punch, which with to strike a matrix, and then He would pour metal and he would produce a piece of type. And he would produce as many pieces of type for the same letter as he thought he would need. The number of different type pieces that Gutenberg used is about 300. So instead of using about 50, he did about 6 times as many. Why would he go to all this length? Because he was a perfectionist. He wanted to do everything that the copyist would do. Let me explain. Let's look at the first line that begins the book of Malachi. It says, Unus verbi Domini ad Israel in manu Malachi propheta. Let's look at the word Domini. It's right here, and it's represented by 3 letters, D, N, and Y. It's an abbreviation. Well, Dominus, which means Lord, is one of the words the most frequently occurring in the text of the Latin Bible. And the copyists, to save time and effort, would abbreviate it. And if we look here, what the copyists did to signal the presence of an abbreviation was put a tilde above the N here. Gutenberg did the same thing, you see. He used Domini, the abbreviated form of Domini, yes. But in this way, now he needed 2 different letters for the N, the regular N and the N with a tilde. If you look at the text, it really looks like a contemporary manuscript, which is what Gutenberg meant to do. Of the about 180 copies of the Gutenberg Bible, 46 to 48 survive in bound form. There are about 2,000 leaves. And what our collection has is 4 of these leaves. Gutenberg's invention was immensely successful. Within a few years, there were printing presses all over Western Europe. By the end of the 15th century, at least 20 million copies of various books had been printed. The Bible is probably the most reprinted book during that period.